RLS Spanish presents Spanish-speaking countries. España, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, la República Dominicana, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, México, Nicaragua, Panamá, Paraguay, Perú, Puerto Rico, Uruguay, Venezuela, Guinea Equatorial. Now I'm going to pronounce the name of each country once again in alphabetical order. Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Ecuador, El Salvador, España, Guinea Equatorial, Guatemala, Honduras, la República Dominicana, México, Nicaragua, Panamá, Paraguay, Perú, Puerto Rico, Uruguay, Venezuela. Now we're going to talk about the meanings of each country name. The first one is Argentina or Argentina. So that word means made of silver or silver colored. And it comes from the Latin word argentum, which means silver. Bolivia. That name comes from the name Simón Bolívar. It was named after Simón Bolívar. Simón Bolívar is like the George Washington of South America. He is a military figure who liberated a lot of the countries in South America. Okay, the next country, Chile. So that word, Chile, the meaning of that word is uncertain, but some say that it could come from the Aymara word Chile, which means where the land ends, which kind of makes sense since it's right by the coast, and the land would end and turn into the ocean right there as you cross Chile towards the west. It could also possibly be from a Mapuche imitation of a bird call, so that's from the Mapuche language. Apparently they had a sound they made to imitate a bird call that sounded like Chile. Okay, the next one, Colombia. So that one comes from the name Christopher Columbus. It's a country that was named after Christopher Columbus. And his name, the way you say Christopher Columbus in Spanish, is Cristobal Colón. Cristobal Colón. So Colombia, Colón, Cristobal, sounds kind of like those names. Alright, the next country, Costa Rica. So Costa Rica just kind of has a literal translation. It means rich coast. So Costa means coast, Rica means rich. And it was named Rich Coast by the colonists who colonized it because they hoped they would find gold in the hills there in Costa Rica. Okay, the next country, Cuba. Once again, the origin of this one is unclear, but it's believed to possibly come from the Taino word Cubao, which means where fertile land is abundant, or another word, Coabana, which means great place. Okay, the next word, Ecuador. This one's a straightforward, just a literal translation. Ecuador, that means equator in Spanish. So Ecuador, it's called equator, and that is because it is right on the equator. It's located right on the equator. Okay, the next country is El Salvador. This is another one that has a literal translation. El Salvador. So El means the, Salvador means Savior. So that's what that means, the Savior, El Salvador, the Savior. It was named thus in honor of Jesus Christ by the conquistador Pedro de Alvarado. So El Salvador, the Savior. Okay, our next country in alphabetical order is España, which is Spain. That's how you say Spain in Spanish, España. This name or word comes from the Roman name for the region. They called it Hispania, spelled this way, Hispania, Hispania. So it comes from them, from the Romans, and it's believed by some to mean land of the rabbits. So some people say that's what that word meant. Apparently, in Roman, to the Romans, it meant land of the rabbits. That's kind of interesting. I'm assuming that means somebody at that time must have seen lots of rabbits when they came up with that word for the place. All right, our next country is Guatemala. Guatemala. Once again, the origin of this one is uncertain, but it is thought to possibly come from the Nahuatl word Guatemalan, which means place of many trees, which is derived from the Quiche Mayan word for many trees, which would make sense if any of you have been to Guatemala. I have been there, but they have lots of trees there, so that would make sense. It is kind of a tropical, at least parts of the country are kind of a tropical forest type places with lots of trees, many trees. Also, some people think it might possibly come from the name of a specific tree, the cuate or cuatli tree, which makes sense. Guatemala, cuate, cuatli. All right, our next country, Guinea Equatorial, or in English, Equatorial Guinea. That one's also just a literal translation of the name, Equatorial Guinea. Part of that name, the equatorial part, comes because it's right by the equator. The word Guinea is believed to come from the Portuguese word Guiné, which was used to refer to lands owned by the Guineas, which were an African people who came from regions south of the Senegal River. Okay, so that's, you have kind of two different things happening there. Equatorial, because it's right by the equator, and Guinea, because of the Guineas people, which were African people who came from the region south of the Senegal River. Okay, our next country is Honduras. That one, once again, just kind of a literal translation on that one. It means depths. So Honduras means depths. It was named that, depths, by Christopher Columbus because of the deep water off the coast of the country. Apparently they have deep water off the coast of the country. Depths, Honduras. Okay, the next country, La República Dominicana. That country was named after a person named Saint Dominic, who was the founder of the Dominican order. And the person who named the place with that name was Christopher Columbus's brother Bartholomew. Okay, so we called it Saint Dominic or Santo Domingo, which eventually turned into La República Dominicana, or the Dominican Republic. Okay, our next country was Mexico, and this one comes from a Nahuatl word. Now, Nahuatl is a language, so that's one of the native languages that was spoken in Mexico before the Spaniards came and took over and made Spanish the main language there. Anyway, so Mexico comes from the Nahuatl language, and it's a word meaning the place at the center of the moon. And that's making reference to the fact that Tenochtitlan was built by the Aztecs in the middle of the Lake of the Moon, which later was called Lake Texcoco. Okay, so that's what Mexico means, is the place at the center of the moon. In the next country, Nicaragua. This one was named after a person. So it was named after Nicarao, who was the chief of the indigenous people who lived around present-day Lake Nicaragua during the late 15th and early 16th centuries. So Nicaragua is named after Nicarao, an indigenous chief. Okay, the next country, Panama. Once again, it's kind of unclear exactly where this comes from, but it probably, some people believe, means place of many fish, which comes from a Guarani word. Okay, so the word or name Panama comes from a Guarani word that means place of many fish. That's what some people believe is where that originated from. All right, the next country, Paraguay. Paraguay, also from the Guarani language, is a word that means the water that gives birth to the ocean. Paraguay, the water that gives birth to the ocean, and it comes from the Guarani language. Okay, our next country, Peru. Peru, that word, it's unclear exactly what it originated from or what that means, but Peru possibly means river from a Quechua word, which is one of the Inca languages, meaning a language that was spoken in that area, in what is now Peru, by the people that lived there before the Spaniards came, the Incas. Okay, so in their language, it was a word, in their language, which was Quechua, it was a word that means river, and the word they used for that was Pelu. Okay, so Peru comes from the Quechua word Pelu, which means river. Or it could come from a different Quechua word that means land of abundance, and they would have named it that because the area produced, Peru produced a lot of economic wealth when it was ruled by the Inca. Okay, our next country, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. This one's a literal translation, means rich port. So Puerto means port, Rico means rich port. And it was named that because of the amount of gold that was found in its rivers by the Spaniards. Okay, our next country, Uruguay. Uruguay. Once again, a word that comes from the Guarani people, or the Guarani language. And in that language, it was a word that meant bird tail. Okay, and the Guarani people gave that name to a river that flows past the country of Uruguay. Okay, so Uruguay means bird tail, which was the name given to a river that flows past the country by the Guarani people. Right, and our last country in alphabetical order is Venezuela. Venezuela. So that is just kind of comes from the Spanish people in the Spanish language, and it means little Venice, like Venice, Italy. They were referring to Venice, Italy when they called it that. Venezuela, little Venice. That was named thus by the Spaniards after seeing native houses on stilts along the shores of Lake Maracaibo. So they They saw those houses. It made them think of Venice, Italy. So they called the place Venezuela, which means Little Venice.